Welcome to HortTube, where we talk all things gardening. My name is Jim Putnam, and this is a banana shrub. This is banana shrub, an upright growing evergreen shrub that gets off-white fragrant flowers. Banana shrubs can reach 10 feet in height, but can easily be kept around 6 feet. It has a perfect globe shape to it, so it's slightly narrower than it is high. Banana shrubs are not very cold hardy. This plant is really recommended for zones 8 to 11, but we grow these in zone 7, but in zone 7 they definitely need to be in a protected space along a foundation. You definitely wouldn't want this in the west or the north wind in the wintertime. The banana shrubs can be kind of slow to start growing when they're initially planted, but once they're in the ground for any length of time, this thing can actually put on a foot or more growth in a single season. In terms of sun or shade, this plant can actually take either, but it doesn't perform very well in less than a half a day's sun. It'll end up being very thin and it won't flower as well, but it won't kill it. It just probably won't serve the purpose that is intended to, which is usually used as a screening plant. And of course the fragrant flowers are one of the main benefits of it. So definitely at least a half a day sun and all the way up to absolute full sun. In terms of where we would use banana shrubs, like I said, in zones 8 to 11, you can use this plant anywhere you'd want to. It's probably not a great foundation plant except for on corners where you would use it for some height. It would really mostly be used between you and a neighbor to create a screen, or in the back of a perennial border, someplace where you can allow it to really get some height on it. In zone 7, like I said, you have to use it as a foundation plant really. So, it's a corner anchor plant on a foundation. Or maybe if you had a space where you had built a screen on the north side of your property, you could plant it on the south side of that. Banana shrubs get off-white flowers that actually have a banana scent to them, hence the reason this plant's called a banana shrub. In zones 8 to 11, this thing bloomed very heavily in the spring and then sporadically through the summer and early fall for sure until it gets cold. In zone 7, typically we take a little damage on these in the wintertime and we don't get as much in the spring, and it'll typically start in the summer for us. But they are just absolutely fantastic plants. This and tea olives together make a great combination because the tea olives bloom in the cooler months in the wintertime and into the early spring, and this plant will just kind of take over after that, and both of them are fragrant and both of them are evergreen. Banana shrubs are actually in the magnolia family, and that off-white flower looks like a small magnolia flower. Banana shrubs wouldn't want to sit in water between rains or between waterings, and so if you have heavy clay soils, you definitely have to be concerned that it could end up waterlogged at some point. So if we dig the hole the depth of this root ball and maybe twice the width of the root ball, if you've pulled clay out of the hole, mix some pine bark soil conditioner in with that clay 1-to-1 or 50-50, 50% pine bark and 50% clay. It's what most of the plants that you buy, woody ornamental shrubs, are grown in, is a pine bark soil conditioner mix. It's just composted pine bark. It's really great for creating drainage in clay-based soils or heavy soils to allow the water just to kind of pass through and not drown your plants. If you have very, very sandy soils, and this plant will work great in sandy soils, you can mix some compost or some peat moss or cow manure would work great. Again, 50-50 with whatever comes out of the hole. And use that 50-50 mix as your planting soil. We're going to want to put some of that planting mix back into the bottom of the hole, maybe 2 inches. So when we pull the plant out of the container, set it into the hole, it's actually sticking up a couple inches. Use the rest of your soil mix to mound up right up to the edge of the root ball. Don't bury anything that wasn't buried when you purchased the plant. Tamp it down, water it in well, and then mulch it lightly. You can mulch heavy out away from the plant, but as you get closer to it, we want to make it very thin, and don't cover anything that wasn't covered when you purchased it. Don't mound mulch up onto the wood of this plant. That will definitely not be beneficial. It's possible, this one's pretty good size here in this 3-gallon pot. It's possible that this thing is pretty root bound, meaning the roots are wound very, very tightly on one another in the container. If that's the case, you can pull at those pretty vigorously and get them going outward instead of continuing to wrap around one another. If it's really bad, if it's almost all roots and not a lot of soil left, you can actually take a knife and cut it from top to bottom, maybe in 3 different places. This is probably a plant that would require some watering in the summertime if it was abnormally dry or abnormally hot. It will thin out in the bottom of it. In fact, this one's got some yellow leaves in the interior of it where it's kind of ready to be planted. It's been in this pot for a long time, and each time it gets dry, it sheds a few of those interior leaves. So If you see it shedding some interior leaves and they'll turn yellow, they'll let you know, or the top of the plant will wilt some. Drag a water hose over to it and water it really well. Saturate the entire area around the plant. Don't just water it right at the base of it. And you should be fine with this plant. It's not a plant that I would put on an automated irrigation system. I think you'll end up doing more damage than good over the long run. At some point, you'll overwater it. Banana shrubs can be fertilized in the spring with any slow release outdoor fertilizer that you want to purchase. I don't think it would matter a whole lot with this plant. The only thing we definitely don't want to do is fertilize this plant mid to late summer, because it will put on some growth at the end of the season that will end up very, very badly damaged in that winter. So we want to let the fertilizer kick in the spring and into the early summer, and then kind of run out and let the plant stop growing at the end of the summertime. When your banana shrub gets bigger than you want it, and it probably almost certainly will, you can actually be pretty aggressive pruning these once they're established. They're almost holly-like in their ability to take a pruning. You can cut this thing in half if you needed to. My suggestion would be, I like this kind of natural form that it has. It's not too spiky on the top. This loose natural form is kind of nice. So if you have to prune it maybe a foot lower than you want to keep it, so that you can allow it to grow a season or two and take a more natural form rather than constantly keeping it in a perfectly round ball. Once established, banana shrubs don't get a lot of insect or disease problems. Typically, they are susceptible to scale insects, and the scale can actually get kind of aggressive on these, and they can end up with some leaf loss. Luckily, we have an organic option. We can use horticultural oil as a cure on scale insects. Another issue we could have on these, if they were planted in an area that stayed too wet or they were over mulched for any length of time, you could end up with root rot issues. But as long as you follow basic planting instructions and elevate them when you plant them and not over mulch them, you should be fine. As many fragrant shrubs are, banana shrubs are actually deer resistant. So what are you waiting for? Even you can grow the low maintenance, fragrant flowered banana shrub. Thank you for watching my video, and if it was helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for future videos. Also, comment below with any questions you have about banana shrubs. Thank you.